Chapter 5, Choices and Change. On April 13th, 2006, I was living in Seoul, South Korea, on another geographical cure runaway. I'd graduated from University of Calgary by this point. I was in university, and I was using cocaine 6 days a week, working at a rundown pub in Motel Village. There were traffickers that would sit by the windows of this hexagon club looking out over a 2-story motel. I would observe them coming into the pub, giving the pimps money, and then being told what room to go to. They knew I knew. They'd slip me flaps of cocaine to stay quiet. For years, I lived this double life at university while I studied international development and African studies. I'd been to Ghana on a field school. I'd been to Nigeria. I'd been to Egypt. I'd been to France and Costa Rica. I was studying human trafficking all over the world, and here I was participating in it in Calgary. One day, a woman came out on a gurney, and that was the big change for me, the realization that somebody had died. With that, I decided something needed to change, so I tried free treatment a few times. I ran away to Seoul, South Korea to get away from that life because I wanted to go to a place where drugs were illegal. I got an amazing job teaching English, and they paid for my flight and my room. I was hired for my appearance. I was placed on a teacher assignment in a prep school. I was told how to dress, that I should get laser treatments to make my skin look creamier, lose 30 pounds, and wear more makeup. None of it was healthy for my body image. But what I didn't know was how to only drink because I'd been drinking with cocaine for years. I also didn't know how independent and powerful I thought I was when I'd given everything away. One Friday night, I went out by myself, and I didn't come home. The bar was down in the Itaewon district, which is like their Vegas. It's the melting pot of teachers, military, expats, and diplomats. I met these guys in a bar. I got drinks from them, and then I started to feel really weak. I started to feel like I was on GHB, which is the date rape drug, that we used to take in smaller doses in Calgary for fun as a party drug, so I knew what it felt like. I left the club and I went outside to the alley. I needed to get some air. I was going to try to get a taxi, but then I started to fade. I leaned onto the brick wall, and all I could smell was food from the night carts in the alley. Fried food, rice cakes, and red pepper sauce, a sour smell. I needed to just sit down and sleep here. And then a car pulled around the corner, and it was a guy from the bar. The last thing I remember was him grabbing me by my shoulders and laying me down in the backseat of the car. He lifted my legs into the car. I could see it all happening, but I couldn't move. And then the door closed. And then I don't remember. When I woke up, I was in an apartment, bound to a chair. I opened my eyes to see a video camera across the room and bloody, beady eyes. I heard 2 male voices. I'm naked. There's all this stuff around me, and he's sitting beside me. Suddenly, something Miss Baxter told me came to my mind. We're not powerless, but we give our power away. I'd written it down in my journals. It's also the first step in the recovery programs that say we're powerless, and our lives had become unmanageable. It was all starting to connect. I'd given my power away, thinking I was so independent and could go always get myself home. This time I couldn't. He held me for 2 days. He got tired of me. I was too loose to be raped again. All he'd left was humiliating and physically beating me. I found what clothes I could and I left. I didn't have any money. I didn't have my wallet. I didn't have my phone. I ran outside and a taxi driver picked me up by some grace of God. I called him an earth angel. We couldn't speak to each other. I didn't know what region I was in. I couldn't read the signs and I couldn't tell him my address. I was a mess. Because of how I looked and because we were close to the American military base, he thought I must be American. So he just dropped me off at the guardhouse on base. 2 soldiers helped me in. They started asking me questions, and I think they put it together before I did. I was trying to not tell anybody, to make this disappear. I didn't want this to be something. I ended up signing over that they would deal with it. What I now know is this happened off base. This happened with somebody from base. This happened on Korean soil, so it would have to be a Korean investigation. I didn't want anyone to know. My plan was to take this to the grave. I thought it'll just get better. I'll just get better. They gave me a checkup, they gave me a social worker, and they told me about a recovery program that met weekly on the base, and that's where I started going to meetings. Then they got me home. I've never drank since. The fuck-its. Reading through my journals, I found that I would often tell myself that I didn't know what to do, and I would sit and spin in anxiety and fear. I would freeze or I would run. I would escape to different workshops or conferences. I would escape to different weekends away with friends and hope I would find something in those places outside myself that would reveal to me what I was to do. The longer I was looking outside for these things, the more I felt like I was forcing myself into my own illusionary cage. When opportunities came for me to open the door and fly away, I would shut down and sit in the self-satisfaction of the fuck-its. The fuck-its are a state where you know what you're doing, and you're doing something wrong, and you choose to do it anyway. The fuck-its are the state where you know you should say no, but you say yes. And you don't care if you disappoint or harm other people with vindictive or vengeful behavior that you blame on other people, places, and things. Blame is another fuck-it too. These states are where we identify what pride is and how it plays a role in either keeping the mask on or keeping the illusion alive, or taking it off and being able to see it for what it is, what a tragedy it would be to hide behind it. Instead, we have the courage to choose to change, to step out of the way where we feel bound by the ball and chain. We must acknowledge that we're scared and frightened to have the courage to move on to the next level. But we know that we don't want to be in this place anymore, that we're living with aggressive words and actions directed at ourselves and other people. Instead, we believe it's possible and feasible to get to a new place. We accept that we can change things by making a decision. When we come from that place of pain, which is our fear, and we try to keep covering it up with the mask, which is our ego, we're not surrendering, and we can stay stuck in the bottom loop, projecting all our blame and anger and hatred on others and forcing the cycle to continue until we either get sick or others cannot tolerate us anymore. We find ourselves more and more isolated and withdrawn, or we find ourselves hanging out with people in places we shouldn't be, keeping us stuck in secrets, living a lie, showing up masked. We can become indifferent to how our actions actually affect other people. No one likes someone who is indifferent. They cannot trust and don't value their participation. All of this shifts into the middle, the nest, at the knowings phase, where we start to not only believe with our logical mind that we need to change, but our body is physically telling us we need to change too. Or we just feel something inside, and we don't know how we're hearing it or sensing it or feeling it or knowing it. But we hear the call from within and we trust it. Like when my dad hurt me in a blackout, doing things no one should do, especially to a daughter. I wept as I held my infant son, vowing to protect him from the same pain while still battling the addiction that should never have touched me. This is the stage I call the spiritual two-hand shove. Sometimes when we're stuck in a pattern or a loop or a process because we're trying to control and force the outcome, we're creating so much tension between natural flow and ourselves, and the universal God has to step in and give us a spiritual two-hand shove to knock us down, just so we can pull ourselves back up. Sometimes this is physically felt like I'm getting a nudge from the other side, like when I felt Chuck's embrace looking over my shoulder to see if there was actually someone there. Usually it's telling me to leave and let go of wherever I'm trying to force or hold on to, like hanging onto a metal pipe until our fingers just give out and we fall. But sometimes the fall is exactly what we needed to do over and over. We teach this to toddlers from infancy, and the greatest lessons for them are learning how to pick themselves back up and move forward. My friend Jen has been through the fall of the spiritual two-hand shove a few times. After moving down to California to complete her master's and teach at a forward-thinking tech high school, she had to experience immense loss when her time there was cut short. After a bad bicycle accident that landed her in the hospital and having her parents fly down to bring her back to the Canadian healthcare system, she crashed again when she got better. Everything she thought she was building and doing was taken away from her. Everything she thought she was working towards and the people and partnerships she imagined having were gone, never to return. Having to sit in the healing, rehabilitate her brain and legs and body, and take time away from working and studying and building her career had her depressed, sad, and uncertain of what was ahead. She took work teaching at other programs, and when she came back to the city she chose to live in, but nothing was lighting her up. You see, she was doing the work she could always do. But who was she? She wasn't sure of that. And she reflected of who she was in California wasn't who she wanted to be either. It was more of a chase. But to what end? After some time off and landing another contract of work that was similar to her work in California, the universe stepped in again with another two-hand shove. This time she was riding an e-scooter and thought it was safer than getting on another bike again. Lo and behold, there was a malfunction in the locking mechanism, and when she went over some uneven terrain from roots growing through concrete, she landed on her face again. Only this time the scooter collapsed, crushing her ankle. It's now held together with titanium rods and synthetic parts. And what did she have to sit and think about? A lot. A lot of wonder how you can move geographical locations and have the same experience repeat itself. Wondering what lesson she missed the first time. Wondering what she needed to do this time to finally learn what she was supposed to learn. In her healing, she had a lot of time to think about that. Again, the work suffered and she had to reflect on what she was doing. She could always go back to the work she'd always done, applying skills she had applied before, but why? And what did she need to learn about making meaningful change that was not going to produce the same kind of patterns again? Now she's balancing her mental health, working with professionals to find the right doses to keep her balanced and well, including eating healthy and staying hydrated, and able to see the things that bring her joy in her life. Jen has come for one-on-one counsel and a weekend-long retreat, done the 8-week-long digital course, and is still on the walk. She's constantly diving into the stories she told herself are true and uncovering the lies that she had a hold on her. To see what's next for herself, she's doing something different now. She's listening differently. She's listening within. She's asking the hard questions. She's saying no to contracts that come up that are similar to those that came before, because now she's able to analyze some of the data of her soul. She's able to see that just because she's capable of doing something doesn't mean aligns with who she is and ultimately called to be. In this period of her life, as she navigates the what's next as a single woman in her 40s with no relationship and no kids, she wonders what all that work was for anyways. Now she's making decisions that align with her values, stepping into what she does, planning a life ahead that brings a lot of groundedness, slowing down, and noticing the signs on the pathways through life. When I met Luke, I could tell he was between two worlds. The tattoos and the steroid-induced muscles told me one story, the mask of the hardness of life, and the sad eyes of a man who just wanted to feel like he knew he was on the right track, moving somewhere good, told another story. The truth was, he wasn't moving somewhere good. The steroids he was using for working out were black market, and the people who were hustling those always had the next best scam up their sleeves, too. When we met, the conversation started around what to do with the hot, or stolen, motorcycle that was in his living room, which he was holding for a friend. That friend was the dealer who was holding onto the compensation for the deal gone bad, and Luke was just helping out his friend. The energy of that helping out came with more than he asked for. Every time he came home, he'd see that bike, he saw the life he was participating in. He knew it wasn't good. He knew that life was a mask from the life he was living with his family, a close family, where the mom of 3 sons was going through chemo again for another cancer after she'd already been through a couple bouts. When asked about his mom, Luke couldn't talk about it. He didn't have the courage to put words to the sadness he felt to have a mom, the matriarch of all boys, be unwell and unable to live life to the fullest again. He was able to master the mask of the tough guy with the tough front of the organized crime badge with the kind of social acceptance he was wanting, a family of sorts. But it turns out, fucked up families are fucked up families. The more he was around the dark life and dark activities, the less he felt himself, and the more he felt like a puppet trying to be like everyone else. The pride and boasting ego he thought of being so tough is like a bird yelling from a cage to be seen, and not knowing why authentic connections are hard, why relationships are hard. See, when we're in this place, we tend to only meet other birds in cages, or people who think they can save or fix the birds in cages. Neither are healthy or ideal. And without knowing it, his moral compass was screaming for a change of course. Find another flight path. Not rooting in the moral compass of any one faith or religion or spiritual understanding, Luke displayed the 2 things necessary to start listening where this comes from: curiosity and desire. He was curious if there was another way. He would often look at me and wonder how I let things go. When I would tell him to let things go, he would wonder how. He desired to feel differently. On his quest, he listened to me talk about wanting to attract owls. He went for a massage with a girl he knew, and she did a Reiki-like look into him. She told him she sees an owl in him, and when he called to tell me after the appointment, he then went for a walk with his dog at the dog park, and wouldn't you know, I get a photo of a great horned owl in the middle of the day on branches in spring where there's no leaves or no place to hide, in plain sight. Jealous, I expressed how happy I was for him, but inside I was burning. I'd been manifesting and researching and tracking owls to see one like this, and now he gets to? And you know what? Life's like that. It's not fair. And the jealousy was the opportunity for me to see if I use it as ruffling my feathers or something more life-giving on my path. I chose the latter. Over time, Luke settled into his calling for work and got himself on a healthier track. He's a devout follower of 75 Hard, a mental discipline and fitness plan for hardcore people. The gym is his church, and he's now open and willing to have hard conversations and working on his relationships. He puts sound mentors into his life, other entrepreneurs who freelance and do contract work. I've never known a guy to miss a day at the gym, and he's constantly working on his prized possessions, his legs, in a healthy way, where most meatheads like him are working on their shoulders. He sees the world a little bit differently now. He sees the pathway as his own, and we need more of that. We have to surrender this process so we'll observe and learn and listen and hear differently things that become our truths. Then we'll see the choices in front of us and can discern or dissect where they're coming from, whether it's a place of fear or love. We also start to feel like we're moving to a higher vibration. Things start to feel more hopeful, and trusting ourselves and our values starts to feel like an inspiring place to be. There's more harmony with our surroundings. Then we get to this place where we relax the muscles in our face, smile at strangers, offer compliments, hold doors, leave kind comments online. Suddenly, life feels like it has meaning again, and we feel joy and love in the things we do. Burnouts, breakdowns, and breakthroughs. 2 things I know for sure. 1, burnout causes breakdowns in our routines, habits, and flow. 2, breakdowns lead to breakthroughs with a spiritual 2-hand shove in another direction. I have quirks. Sometimes things scare me or remind me of things from my past. I swung at my ex-husband when he grabbed my shoulder from behind one time, a nice normal gesture when dating. However, for me it was a trigger of something I couldn't get away from. I cannot be confined or tied up for fun. In an instant, I flip and think I can't get out, and panic sets in. I cannot be around any dark arts or those casting spells to harm others, as my soft soul cannot handle it. It's playing with low vibrations and not going to a high enough source. I have good quirks too, things that make me forgive everything and everyone who harmed me. That took decades of work. I'm more than 2 decades into my spiritual journey and more than 17 years into recovery from alcohol and cocaine addiction. I'm sober from those 2 things, and I believe in harm reduction, as cannabis helps me thrive. I've recently heard it called California sober. Therefore, when we bring this death to the spin cycle and take it to a spiral, that's the death of the logic attachment to the spin. When we retreat, we put to death this idea of living in burnout, and that living in burnout, even though it's going to kill us, means we have to stay in it. We put to death the idea that we can't calm ourselves with breath. Spiraling up or spiraling down. Having the courage to surrender is making a decision to change and identify the clues and coincidences that will help push us to the new growth place, a new direction, and create new plans with intentions. This is where we feel the spiritual 2-hand shove. When in fact, from a place of ego over and over, and acting from a place of fear, that is what can stop us. When we continue the cycle, or we can start to tune into the feelings differently, creating new archetypes and creating new visions of who we want to be. We do this by paying attention to what we're seeing, reading, listening to, watching, hearing, and aligning ourselves with. Either more of the path that we're on or more of the path that we want to be on, and we have to be willing to see it another way. We also have to identify that these 2-hand shoves are sometimes consequences. Some belief systems call them karma, some call them punishments from a power greater than us, but I don't believe in that for a second. These are too often man-made institutions of Catholic or Mormon control, such as women lying to each other, forced by men to embrace the eternal role of mother, both here and on the other side. This reminds me of the quote from Women Talking, 2018. The truth is she's not crazy. The truth is she's been driven crazy. I believe these things are more like course correction and awareness. Lessons can come to us through consequences, and when they don't go our way, through noticings, gut feelings, dreams, visions, and plans. There's no bad or wrong place to be in the OwlSeek method. There's no such thing as a bad construct of the mind that would dictate that you are also bad. If we could tie some dark cloud of religious doctrine over our head with sinning as a consequence, It can feel like you have a duty and obligation to make it right. The problem with that, as many of these constructs have been man-made, is that people are put under the pressure of other people or belief system that makes them feel like they're in scarcity or lack and can't crawl out of the black cloud or whatever indoctrination they've been led to believe. The truth is, we're allowed to shift our belief system. The truth is, even though we've been raised with religious doctrine and told something logically, we can know in our body it's not true. You have permission and are allowed to explore this, lest we be burned by men and bound by control. Diving into this needs a map or a guide to answer the right questions along the way, to get you to your destination, and that's what the OwlSeek Method workbook offers, a way to clear your path. Find out more at owlseek.ca, www.owlseek.ca. We need to find and shift our perspective and look at these bad things as challenges that we can learn and grow from. We step into the place of acknowledging that we are getting challenges or lessons or assignments or tests, but I don't like the word tests because I don't think we're physically tested by a force of something on the other side. I think we're more given the opportunity in our free will to objectively look at things and assess whether we're on our path. So, from the nest, you can either stay in a low vibration, stay in self, stay in subjective self-staying, or you can see it from a higher perspective. And when you make your logic self your guiding light, you're too influenced by the lower veil of the world. That lower veil of the world in the diagram has a heavy-handed logic cloud that keeps people stuck. Some people had parents or guardians or teachers or influencers around them that held these low vibrational energies. Some people stay in a man-made religious or low vibrational energy, spinning their whole life. When we step into more of a spiritually mature place, which is what the nest offers, we can reflect on and see if what we were taught and sit with it and see if it's true or not. When people get stuck in a low vibrational state, they go back to the only place they know and try to get out of it. Your parents, your advisors, your mentors, or your organized belief system. Or you do something external to distract and escape, like take another workshop or another class, or you become a little bit of a program jumper where you don't actually follow through on anything you've learned. Or you have an affair and live a double life. These things also need to be reflected on. We can only do that when we detach from everything and holistically look it all over. We need the courage to ask who's in our corner, and the courage to ask people that we've surrounded ourselves with if they're actually helping us move forward. Really go higher in the nest with a bird's eye view and see those people we're hanging out with and who the influences are, because the energy comes back and impacts us. People are allowed to make decisions and go back to relationships and go back into their own cycles and patterns. If you're walking along someone and you notice a lower vibration while you're trying to go higher, you're going to have to decide whether you're going to walk away or you're going to stay in it. If you're going to stay in it, you have to recognize that you're just returning to the same cycle pattern loop stuck at a low vibration with this person. This is a choice. This is a choice can be made in work environments, churches, friendships, personal environments, clubs, and associations. You have the opportunity in every single given moment to look at all of this. Spiritual two-hand shove. The universe will move you to where you need to be. The universe will show you how inappropriate you are, with whom, and where to go. The universe will give you a two-hand shove to move you to where you need to be and with whom. We don't know how we're hearing it or sensing it or feeling it or knowing it, but we do hear the call from within and we can trust it. This is the stage I call the spiritual two-hand shove. When we're stuck in a pattern or loop or process because we're trying to control and force the outcome. We're creating so much tension between natural flow in ourselves, and the universal God has to step in and give us a spiritual two-hand shove. Sometimes this is physically felt, like I'm getting a nudge from the other side, or I'm looking over my shoulder to see if something's there. Usually this is telling me to leave and let go of whatever I'm trying to force or hold on to. Sometimes the fall from the metal bar we can't grip anymore is exactly what we need to do over and over and over. We have to surrender this process so we can observe and learn and listen and hear different things that become our truths. And we see these choices in front of us, can be better discern or dissect where they're coming from, whether it's a place of fear or love. We also start to feel like we're moving to a higher vibration. Things start to feel more hopeful. Trusting ourselves, our values within start to feel like an inspiring place to be. And there's more harmony with the things that are around us. When we get to this place, we relax the muscles in our face and smile at strangers, offer compliments, hold doors, and leave nice comments online. Suddenly, life starts to feel like it has meaning again, and we can find joy and love in the things we're doing. With grace, we feel different. We're okay, and we let go of what has to go. I spent the first decade of my career wanting to make moves, give people stories, and be this disruptor and change maker. And I thought it had to be behind the scenes of everything. And very intentionally, I was. And the result was I ended up not having control of what I was doing. And when it was time, I felt the spiritual two-hand shove. You might have heard the call the last couple of times to make changes and pivot, but you've still been saying, no, 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 not yet. Later. It's okay for now to keep going with it. Maybe I'll try it a different way. And what you're hearing is, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. But that ego attachment doesn't want you to separate from it, even though you know you need to. So the spiritual two-hand shove comes along and it can't be ignored. It's a hockey reference to the cross-check from behind that you don't see coming. It wrecks your plans and then you got to pick up the pieces. When my marriage ended, it ended because I told him I couldn't do it anymore. And there was a relationship I didn't know about. It was time for me to leave my home, his house. At the time I heard, this will be as hard as you make it. The second thing I heard was if you truly believe in forgiveness, grace, and love, in one breath you'll exercise that. I believe the spiritual two-hand shove comes in and through us as something that's planted in our mind as a knowing, or it comes in and through our heart center, where we feel it first.